In this video, I'm going to show you how to replace the AC EVAP core in this Chevy Silverado. Let's get into it. Keep in mind, before you start this repair, you want to take the vehicle to a local AC shop to have the refrigerant removed so that you can do this job. You want to start out by making sure the steering wheel is straight and making sure the wheels are straight ahead. It's not just turned to one side or another. We're going to remove this cover. Just take a small straight blade screwdriver, get in the corner here, or a trim tool. Just pop up underneath. And then it slides down. So there's clips on the side, and then will slide down. Now we want to remove this bolt right here. Use a T50 socket. This is for the seatbelt. Take that bolt out. You can slide the seatbelt out. There is a little cover right here. Just take the straight blade screwdriver. Get underneath there. And then the seatbelt is unattached from the seat. With the seat all the way forward in the back, we're going to remove these covers. Just use a trim tool right around the front part of it. Just pop up and then it slides back. It's just clipped in right there. Then we're going to pop this cover off. Just use a small pocket screwdriver or straight blade screwdriver underneath here. Just pop this cover up. It's just clipped in. Now using an E14 socket, we're going to take this bolt out right here, loosen that up. And on this side, we're going to do the same. Take this bolt out. Now we need to move the seat to the back position. If you have a manual seat, then obviously just move it all the way back. And pop this cap off here, just with a straight blade screwdriver. And this cover right here, just use the trim tool, get underneath. That pops off right there. This little piece stayed on here. Let's pop that off. It's just gonna go in there. Just like that. We're going to remove these nuts. Use an E18 socket. In the back part of the seat, there's a cover right here. You want to take that cover off. You can move the seat forward if you need to. Pop that off. It's just clipped in right there. And then you want to get the seat where you want it. And then you can disconnect this connector. Just squeeze on the two sides here. And lift the lever. And then you disconnect the seat. Now you can pull the seat out. Just grab the seat. Carefully twist it out. And now we're going to do the same procedure on the other side. In the center console, we're going to take this tray out, just grab on the side. You should be able to pull up. If you can't, if it doesn't pull up that easily, just get a trim tool underneath and pry up. It's just clipped in on the sides and the back. Set that aside. Disconnect some wires. You can slide them off the retainers right there. Use a straight blade screwdriver. Just push down on the tabs, slide those off. There's a connector right here. Just push down on the tabs on the two sides. Rotate that. And this should slide out. Disconnect that. Now this retainer right here, slide this off. Now you can grab the center console and slide it back. And it slides right out. We're going to disconnect the battery. Use a 10mm wrench. Loosen up the terminal. Just on the negative side. You can take this plate off if you need to, but you don't have to. And just slide that off and out of the way. Take this cover off, just pull underneath there, slides right off. Using a 10mm socket underneath the release for the parking brake, there's a bolt. You want to take that bolt out. Like that. Then you can slide that back. There's two screws under here. Use a Phillips head screwdriver. Take those screws out. And grab this panel. And it just slides back. It's just clipped in. I'm going to pull this panel off. Just use a trim tool. Get underneath. Just pops right up. And it's clipped in. I just grab this panel. It's going to pull straight back. It's just clipped in right there. It might be clipped in right there. That piece is broken. I'm going to disconnect these wires right here. Just use a couple trim tools just to pop these clips off. And this is connected to this fuse box right here. Just ratchet that off and disconnect it. Same with this one. And we want to disconnect these wires as well. Just pop these off with the trim tool. We'll disconnect this. Pull that retainer out and then pop this off. Just like that. Just follow the wires along. They connect to the BCM right here. We'll just disconnect those right there. There's one. Another one. Using a 10mm socket, take these nuts off. There's an extra wire here. This isn't factory, but if you have a wire like that, you want to disconnect that. And then take the other 4 nuts off. Same 10mm socket. And then take this bracket, it slides out. I'm going to remove this vent under here. Just use a trim tool. There's a little push clip right here. Get under there and pry that out. two trim tools. Pop them out. And it slides right up. Remove this wire retainer right here. This wire goes all the way up to the airbag on the steering column. Pull that out. There's another wire that's over here. You want to disconnect this. Just push on the little tab. It slides out. And there's another connector right here. You're gonna have to squeeze the two side tabs and fold over the lever. Push the lever over and it slides right out. Then the steering column is completely disconnected electrically. Again, you want to make sure the steering wheel is centered and the wheels are straight. Now I'm going to put some wire ties around the steering wheel so that we don't mess up the clock spring when we take the column out. Just put those around here and then around the shifter column. Not too tight. It just needs to prevent the wheel from spinning. We have to remove this bolt and nut. Use a 13mm wrench on the bolt side, then a 15mm wrench on the nut side. Loosen this up. Once you get it started, you can use a ratchet wrench, be a little quicker. Take that nut off. And take the bolt out. Now we're going to separate the intermediate shaft from the steering column. Just slide that down, out of the way. This shifter cable has to be disconnected. Just use a trim tool or a screwdriver, or prying tool. Pop that off right there. There's a little clip right here that needs to be popped out. Just slide that piece out. And there's two tabs, one on each side. You could use some pliers if you need to, or just a screwdriver. Just push those tabs in. Slides out. Just be careful, you don't want to push on the cable and have it shift the truck out of park. Now just slide that to the side. And the cable goes around the back side of the column, and you have to pop the cable out of that. So just pop the cable out here, and it should be just sitting right there. When we take the column out, this should just slide out. If not, you just might have to adjust it as you're pulling the column out. Next, we're going to support the column, and we need to take these nuts off. There's 4 of them. Keep in mind, sometimes there is spacers in between the column and the body right here. So you want to see where those come out of. It looks like there's 2 in the back side. So when you put this back together, if you put them in the front, the column's not going to be aligned right. So keep that in mind when you take this down. See if there's any of those spacers. Now I'm going to use a 15mm socket. You can take the 2 back ones out first, and then I'll support it. Support the column and take the 2 front ones. Using a 15mm socket. All right, now drop this down. You can see those are those spacers. Oops. Those spacers were right there and right there. So remember, when we put this back together, we'll have to put those there. Disconnect this cover. Just pull, just grab and pull. It's just clipped in. 2 clips stayed in there. Take this bracket off using a 13mm socket. And remove this nut right here. Use a 10mm socket. And there's one on the back on the driver's side. Take that one out as well. And one on the passenger side. Take that out as well. You can grab this. It's actually a speaker. Slide it up and slide it out. And we'll take these panels off on this side. Just use a trim tool. Get underneath. Pop these up. It's just clipped in. Grab this panel over here. And just pull it straight back. You can use the trim tool. Pop that out. It is clipped in. Should be another clip there. Pull this cover off here. Just grab. Pull it outwards. Disconnect these connectors over here. Just slide the tab out. Pull the connector out. Slide out. This connector right here, push down on the tab. Slide that out, and then one more connector. You might need a pocket screwdriver for that one. And then using a trim tool, take this retainer off here, just like that. There's another one right here. Pop those out. Now we're going to take this panel off. Use a 7mm socket. And there's screws going up. Take those out. There's another one over here. And there should be one more over here. This vehicle doesn't have it. And that just slides right down and out. We're going to take this pillar off, the A pillar. You want a straight blade screwdriver, pop this cover off. There's another one right here. Pop that off as well. There's 2 10mm. We're going to take those out. Using a 10mm socket. Take those screws out. That handle comes right off. You can grab the pillar. Slides out. I'm going to pull it up a little bit. Then you have a speaker to disconnect. Just push down on the tab right here. If you need to, use a pocket screwdriver or a pick. Slide that off and out of the way. Now take the driver's side one off. You're going to use a straight blade screwdriver. Just take this cover off right here. Using a 7mm socket, we're going to take the screw out and grab the pillar. Same as the other side. Just pull it down and up, and we'll disconnect the speaker. Now we're going to take this panel off. Just use a trim tool. Just get underneath here. Pry up. Just clips in. Slide it up. pull it out slightly. There is a connector we're going to disconnect right here. This connector right here is connected to the ambient light sensor. You can just grab it, twist it to the left, and slide it out. That's okay right there. We'll just slide this panel off. Now we're going to disconnect these connectors right here. You can use a straight blade screwdriver. Pop this connector off. And then you want to use a trim tool, get behind it. Disconnect it right there. There's another retainer over here. You want to disconnect that. This is going to just slide out of the way. You have another connector right here. We'll disconnect that. Push down on the tab. Another retainer. Right there. Pop that off. On the passenger side, disconnect the antenna wire right there. Set that aside. There's another connection right here. I'm going to disconnect this. You just push on the two tabs and this slides off. And then there's a retainer right there. You want to pop that off. Set that aside. There's a ground wire right here. Use a 10mm socket and take that nut off. Take that off and then grab the wire and just slide it off. Using a 10mm socket, we'll remove this ground nut as well. And pull the ground wire up. On top, there's some bolts that are going straight down. Use a 10mm socket, take those out. Be careful of the glass. Under the hood, we're going to have to remove these heater hoses. You're going to need a tool like this to release them. Go on the back, put the tool on. You can push the hoses. You want to make sure you do this when the hoses are cold too, not while the engine's still hot. Push that in. Try twisting it a little bit. And that pops off. Take the tool off. So the tool goes on the pipe and then it pushes on the fingers in there, separates that, and then you can slide it off. Now we'll do the same on the other line. There we go. Slide that off. You're going to lose a little bit of coolant. That's okay. Using a 13mm socket, we'll take these two nuts off. Remember, that's just a vacuum on the system, that air, because we did extract the refrigerant. So you don't want to do this if you didn't have the refrigerant extracted. There's a wiring harness that goes on the side of this accumulator. You want to pull that back. You can pull it back over here as well, just to get it out of the way. And you can see where there's a nut that we have to take off. That attaches to this band that goes around the accumulator. Using a 10mm socket. Take this nut off. It's right there. And grab the accumulator and slide it back. This other hose can be slid off as well. Out of the way. There's 2 bolts right there and down below. We're going to take those out. Use the 10mm socket. Take that out. The drain right here for the heater box, just grab that. You want to pull that off. Remove this plate. Use a 13mm socket. Take these 4 bolts out. When you get to the last one, make sure you support it so it doesn't fall. And just slide it out. To make it easier, I'm going to pull this bar out. Same 13mm socket. Bolt up here, and then a bolt down here. Slide that bar out. Remove the battery hold down. Use a 13mm socket. Remove the positive terminal. Use a 10mm socket. Slide that aside, then grab the battery and pull it out. Using the 10mm socket, there's a bolt here and then a nut over here. We want to take those out. Try not to drop it. I'm going to use a 10mm. It helps to have a swivel socket, and there's a bolt way down here we have to access. Right there. Take that bolt out. This next nut is pretty hard to see. I'm using a 10mm ratchet wrench, and it's right behind this little cover right here. You're going to find a stud, and you got to take that nut out. It's very hard to see, but just feel for it. Once you get the nut loose, you can do it by hand. There's the nut. And on the driver's side, we're going to take this bolt out. Use a 10mm socket. Disconnect this connector right here. Just pull up on the lock tab right there. It slides out. And then if you have to push down on the connector, just use a screwdriver. And then we'll use a trim tool and just pop this wire out right here. That's loose. On this junction box right here, we're going to disconnect all these connectors. Just push down on the tabs, disconnect them. They're only going to go in one spot. Just like that. And this junction box is going to fold out. Just push on the tabs on the side, slide it out, and it slides out like that. You can flip it around. You can disconnect the connectors on the back. Slide these out. Just like that. And set that aside. Down here, I'm going to use a 13mm socket. There's two bolts that you need to remove. They attach the frame of the dash to the vehicle. Loosen these up. Be careful of the window again. There's one, and the other one's right here. And it's just on the driver's side. If you need to, you can use a magnet. Now on the sides, I'm using a 13mm socket. We're going to take this bolt out and this bolt. Then the dash is going to be loose. We'll do the same on the other side. Now we're going to pull the dash out. On the driver's side, I have a cardboard box with a blanket on top of it, and it's going to sit on that area. The wires are still attached. They go through the firewall on this side, so this side's not just going to pull out a little bit. The other side is going to swing out, and it's a good idea to have a assistant with you doing this while you're doing it. It's going to make it a little bit easier. Okay. Just grab. We're just going to pull it out, pick it up a little bit, and just put it down. It's good right there. Yeah, that's pretty good right there. You want to remove this clip, just use a trim tool right there. And slide that out. Then all the wires should be disconnected from the box. You can grab the air box. It should slide out. Just like that. Be careful, you're going to have some coolant in there, so you don't want to tip it down. Slides right out. Take this cover off, use a 5.5mm socket, take these 3 screws out on top. This cover will slide up and out of the way. Now grab the heater core, And just pull it straight up, just like that. Now we're going to tip the box. We want to separate the wiring harness right there. You can use that trim tool. Pop those out. Disconnect the connectors down here. Slide that up. That will be attached to the top. That's okay. Now disconnect everything from the bottom. Right here. Just use a trim tool. Disconnect that connector. There is a temp sensor over here. Go ahead and disconnect that temp sensor. Just using a pick. Pop that out. And pop this wiring harness out right there. Slide that up. And you can take this wiring harness off here. Pop that off. And I'll disconnect this sensor as well. It's okay. And that's attached to the top side, so we don't have to disconnect that. That'll be fine. Tip this over. Using a 7mm socket, take the screw out. Using the 7mm socket, take this screw out. And this piece will slide right off. Now we're going to take these screws out. You're going to use a 5.5mm socket. There's all these plastic welds or plastic rivets that are all around the perimeter of the case. We're going to have to drill those out. You can get creative if you have a rivet drill bit, you can use that, or just a regular drill bit. Just drill out the center. Just like that. It doesn't take much time. And then you can separate the case once you have those all drilled out. So go around and do that. It's going to be the same as the first one. Now you can just go around with a pick or a thin screwdriver and just pop these all out. It's all separated and it just slides right off. Now grab the EVAP core and it slides right out. We're going to take this insulation off. This just slides off like that. If you want, you can clean that up and line it up on the new one. Looks good. Now just slide the new one in. Slide it in position. Now take the top part and just line this all up. If you need to, just wiggle the EVAP core so it lines up. That looks good. Now we can put some screws in. Now you're going to have to find some screws that work. just some sheet metal screws or wood screws, and just snug these down. Now it's all screwed down, we can flip it over. Now line the heater core up and slide it in place. Push it down. Take the cover, line the cover up, and put the screws in. And tighten them down. Now take the wiring harness and you want to put it back where it was. Get all those lined up. This is going to connect underneath here. This will line up here. It's all lined up. This connected underneath here. This connects right here. Now this piece will line up underneath. We'll connect that while we're doing it. Lock that in place. And we'll get the screws lined up and tighten those down. And this piece, this insulation is going to go right here. There's another one that goes here, and it may still be attached to the truck. If you can't see it, it goes like that. And now we can reinstall the whole box back into the truck. And slide the air box back in place. The HVAC box. And it just lines up like that. Now we're going to put the bolts, get those all started. Just lined up. Behind the accumulator. Get this one down below. Get them all started. And the ones behind the engine. And the one on the driver's side in the back. Get all those started. And you can snug those down. And take the nuts and put those on, and you can tighten those down. The one behind the intake. I'm gonna have to reach for that one. Get that one started and tighten it down. Very hard to see, but just feel for it. And before you put these pipes on, there is seals, so you want to take those off, replace those seals, put new ones on. They just slide right off. The same with this one. Now I'll line this up and make sure the bracket's lined up down below. Get this hose lined up as well. And I'm using some new bolts for these because this doesn't have studs, so just get some bolts. Get that started. And actually, before I put that on, I'm going to put the nut on down below for the accumulator on the bracket. Tighten that down. And the nut down below. And get this hose lined up and put that bolt in. Now you can take the heater hose, get that lined up, and press that on so it locks in place. Take the fitting and right on the heater core and slide it on. And it should lock in place. You can grab it and try to pull it off, and it doesn't pull off, then you're good. And take the drain vent. I'm going to slide that in position underneath the accumulator. And just put it on that little tab that's coming out near the firewall, and just make sure you tip it down, just like that. Now just grab the dash, slide it up, and it's going to go on the same way it came off. There we go. You can see where there's a pin that's going to get lined up right there. Makes it easier to line the whole dash up. Just pull the weather stripping out of the way. And take the bolts. Get those 4 bolts started just to hold it from falling. So don't tighten those down yet, but you can just get those placed in. Those 4 bolts, 2 on each side, right there and the other side. Before we tighten any of those bolts down, you want to just make sure the wires are up, that are supposed to be up on the side there. And we're going to take the 2 bolts that go straight down here, get those started. Get that out of the way. You're going to have to push the dash forward. It's going to go down here. Oops. Get that lined up and started. And on the other side over here, if you have a socket with a magnet in it, or you could tape the bolt to the socket, that would help. Get this lined up. And we're going to tighten these bolts down on the side first. Do the other side. Now we'll tighten these down. Now you want to take these bolts and get these started. If they don't line up right, you can loosen up those other bolts we just tightened and adjust so that these do fit, but these are working just fine. And tighten those down. you want to connect the connectors, line those up. With the retainers, push those in. Take this wiring harness where the ground is. It's going to go on there. And connect this connector. And we can push this into the retainers. It's going to go in the back of here. Just like that. And we'll put this nut on. Now making sure that ground wire is still on there, and then put the nut on. And then we'll tighten that down. Snug that down. Now connect the connector right here. Just line that up. Lock that down. The antenna connector over here. Plug that in, just like that. And this retainer is going to go right there. And the ground wire over here. Push that on, the stud. Take the nut, get that started. And snug it down. Now I take this panel, I'm going to take the ambient light sensor, get that started underneath here, and twist it to the right. And get this lined up. There is clips in the front that are going to go in. Put those in first. And then push it down, make sure it's not going to crush any of the wires. Now take these panels, connect the speaker right there, and line it up down below first. Click it in, and this is going to line up top. Get the weather stripping underneath. That looks good. Now take the screw, get that lined up. And snug that down. And put the cover on, lock it down. Now we're going to do the other side, connect the speaker. Line it up down below. And get the weather strip all set. Now put the handle in. And get the screws. And start the screws. Make sure that's out of the way. And tighten those down. Take the caps, line those up. Connect this wire right here and push down on the tab. It's locked in. And then the retainer is going to go up here. Push that in right there. That's good. Now these wires are all going to go up here on the side. And this wire is going to hook up right there. And that should push in right there. Line this up. Now it's going to go right there. Lock in place. And take the other connectors. Get these lined up. It's going to go right there. this one, go under this wire. It's gonna go right there. Lock it down. And take this panel, line this up. That will lock in place. You take this panel, that's gonna go over there. And slide this panel in place and lock it down. Now take this junction box, connect that, connect the connectors in the back first. It's going right there. And ratchet it down. And this one. And these two are going in the back as well. There and there. Now this can go in the bracket. Line that up. Lock it down. Then all the other ones can go in the front. These will only go in one spot. So if you don't remember where they go, you can check. They should line up one of the spots. This one goes right there. Lock those in and take these connectors, line these up, lock that down. There's another one right here. Lock that down, and then you can push these push pins in. These are secure. And some of these BCM connectors, connect those. Like that. That's that ground that's going to get attached later. And this wire harness right here. These are going to go over here. And it's going to connect right there. Get those connected. Make sure they're all locked in. And push these wires in over here. That one's gonna go right there. Now we're gonna put the steering column back in, but before we do that, we had these spacers that need to go right here and right here. Just taking a little piece of butyl tape and just pushing these on. It'll be easier than trying to fiddle with them, putting them up there. Just a little bit. You could tape them on if you wanted to, or even glue them on, but it's not going to affect anything. Now slide this down. Go on the studs. Make sure you have the nuts nearby. Get those started. And the back ones, you can double check, make sure those washers are still there, or spacers, and they are. Oops. Get that nut started. And get this one started. Make sure the wires are out of the way. Looks good. Before we tighten the nuts down, in the back we have this cable that's going to wrap around this, so you want to get that in position. That's the shift cable. It's going to go right there. It just wraps around there. So get that all settled first before you tighten the nuts down, because then you can still shift it a little bit. Just like that. That looks good. Now we're gonna snug these down. And now we're going to torque those to 20 foot-pounds. Now we're going to connect the steering shaft to the bottom of the column. You can turn the wheel back and forth slightly. Remember, you don't want to turn it all the way. Get that to slide in place. And take the bolts and the nut. Get that started. And we'll tighten that down. And once it's snug, we're going to torque it. Now I'm going to torque this to 46 foot-pounds. Now the steering's attached down below. If you put a wire tie around here, you can cut that at this time. Now just take this speaker, line this up on the studs in the back, and put the nuts on. One there, and two in the back. And tighten those down. I'm gonna take this bracket, line this up. It's gonna go right there. Get the bolts started. And we'll tighten those down. Take the cover, line the cover up, and lock it down. And just line this up, slide it in position. Make sure these go over the studs, just like that, on both sides. Now connect the connectors. You can slide that on the tab, right there. This connector. Line that up, ratchet it down. It's just going to attach right there. And take this compartment, and remember there's two little tabs here. Those are going to slide in first, and then push it down. And line the shift cable up. Slide it in position, lock it in, and you can put this on. Just squeeze it, it should be lined up. Take this little horseshoe tab, it's gonna slide in there and lock down. Now connect the connectors. This one's gonna go in here. Once that's in, you're gonna have to ratchet it, lock it in place, and then this connector is gonna go to the BCM right there. Lock that in place. And feed this wire down. This is gonna go over here. Connect into here. That's gonna lock in place. And lock that lock in. And it's gonna attach right here. That's good. Now take this piece. It's gonna line up right here. And get all the nuts started. 2 on this side, 2 on the other. And tighten those down. And on this vehicle, we had a ground strap that goes right here, ground wire. We're going to put a nut on that. Your vehicle probably doesn't have that, but if it does, snug that up. Now this lower air duct is going to go in right there, and the push pin's going to go right here. Just push that in. Where these wires are right here, I'm just going to wire tie these together just to keep them from rubbing on anything. You don't have to do it too tight, just keep them together. That's good. You can just trim the excess. Now I take this cover, line this up, snap it in place. Take the parking brake release handle, just slide that in position, and then take the bolt, get that started. It goes underneath here. Tighten that down, and take the screws, get those started. And we'll tighten these down. This connector right here is going to go in this position. Just push that in right there. That's out of the way. Now I take this cover, slide this over, just line it up. And lock it in place. And slide this together. Just lock it down. And put this cover in place. Lock it down. I'm going to take the cover, line this up. Get the screws started. And tighten those down. And there should be one more screw that goes right in there. This vehicle did not have that, but you want to put that in and tighten that down. Now put the battery back in. And put the hole down in. Get that lined up. And we'll tighten this down. It's tight. I'll take the positive side terminal and line that up. We'll tighten that down now. That's good. Push that cover down. Now take this bar, it's going to go in between the cable, just like that. And take the bolt, get that started, and the bolt up top. Tighten that down. Put this plate back in place. Tighten that down. Now connect the negative terminal end. And we'll tighten that up. Just snug it up. Just grab it. Make sure it's not loose. Give it a wiggle. That's tight. Now we're going to put the seats back in. We're going to connect the connector first. Plug that in. Lock it on. And then just make sure the seats line up with all the studs. The wire doesn't get crushed. That's good there. That's good. And now we're going to install the bolts in the rear. Get those started. Might have to wiggle the seat a little bit. Just going to tighten these down. Just so they're almost tight, not quite, so we can wiggle the seat if we have to for the front. Now move the seat back. I'll put the nuts on up front. Now we'll tighten these down. Now I'm going to torque these to 41 foot-pounds. Now I'm going to move the seat forward again. Now tighten the rear. Then we'll torque the rear bolts to 66 foot-pounds. Now take the seat belt. You want to make sure the seat belt's not twisted. What you can do is actually plug it in. Make sure that goes the correct way. It's going to slide through here. Line that up. Put the bolt in. And we'll tighten that down. And we'll torque this to 38 foot-pounds. And take this cover. These two slots are going to go in first. Just line that up, lock it down. Now this cover is going to go on right here. That's going to go on that stud. Line that up and lock it down. Now slide this cover over the connector. It's going to slide in that side first and then push down in the front. Just lock it in place. And that's locked in. Now this cover is going to go right here. Lock it in and put this cover on. And this one's going to go over here. Line it up, lock it down. And then you can do the same on the other side. Now you can top off the coolant with the appropriate type. There shouldn't have been that much that you lost, but just to make sure, double check. And then run the vehicle for about 10 or 15 minutes and double check the level. Keep in mind, after you're done the job, go back to that AC shop that you had the refrigerant removed from and have it reinstalled.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.